We're in the woods and we're going to try to tackle a nice easy topic such as the meaning of life, and I'm going to be doing this by looking at two sticks and using one hopefully simple analogy to be able to illustrate the difference between potential and actual, and to be able to start to look at this idea of fulfillment and meaning in life. So imagine we have two men. We have man A represented by this stick and man B represented by this stick. Men compare sticks all the time, so we'll actually let's try to make a bit of meaning out of it if we're going to compare sticks regardless. So if we're going to be looking at this one on here, I want you to imagine that we're going to create a circle. Imagine like this is a point at the end of this stick that we're going to draw a circle around like this. So we've got the radius, so that is this point here being at the centre of the circle, this point here being right on the outside to make the circumference, and if we imagine a line being drawn all around that, then it's going to create a circle overall. Can't do this perfectly because obviously a little bit limited in terms of my joints. So in this situation here, what is quite common in a lot of people's lives is to measure the worth of somebody's life by the radius, by the length of this stick in the first place. This could represent your circumstances, it could represent how you were born, it could represent the resources that you've got available, it could represent like the financial state of your family at your birth. It could be anything that we start to look at. And in a lot of situations, if we start to focus too much on simply the length of this stick, then all that's going to happen is we're going to become frustrated and lost and sad and unhappy with our lives because we'll just look at other people that have got longer sticks or bigger sticks in general. So instead, what's going to be much more useful is considering the length of the stick that you've been given. What area can you cover in your life? Can you fulfill the circle of your life's tasks? Because it's the area that you're going to be judged by overall rather than the starting place of this stick. So the radius isn't relevant, it's the area that is going to be covered by this stick which is considerably more important. And if this person here was able to get through their entire life, let's say that was birth all the way through to death, and they get back round to this and it makes this perfect circle, we can say that person has lived a meaningful life because they've completely, fully actualised all their potential. There's no point thinking, oh, if this person was born with a bigger stick or in different circumstances or whatever else it is, because that person would no longer be that person. It would just be describing a different person at that point. So in this case here, if this is the radius that you've been given, then this is what we need to do. We need to focus on you actualising your potential by creating a circle which is based on the radius that you have. Now let's say in comparison, we've got this person over here. Now this person has been born into, let's say, maybe more favourable life circumstances. Let's say he is born as a prince knowing that he's going to become a king one day in the future. So he's been given much more favourable birth circumstances that were out of his control. He's got more resources, he's got more potential to impact the world. So his stick is going to be bigger, let's say, for this. Which means as a result, if we trace the exact same example round, can't really do that one perfectly, but if we imagine like the bigger circle over here, then he's going to have, in theory, potentially a bigger impact on the world. But that doesn't mean that he necessarily does. Doesn't mean that it actually improves on that. It doesn't mean it actually actualizes on that potential. It's still up to him. So if this person here, who is born as a prince, he knows that in all healthy, everything that's going to be healthy and possible in his life, if he actually goes along with it, is going to lead towards this really, really successful life. And let's say he gets halfway through his life and actually it's going really, really well, but then it stops around here. Well, in that case, he's not going to make it all the way back around and fulfill his full potential if he falls short, if he gets distracted, if he starts doing things that would be unprincely or unkingly, and as a result his empire goes to ruin. In that situation there, although he was born with the potential to do great things, he also has a greater potential for that to go wrong in that case. So in this situation here, if this man A, is looking at man B thinking, oh, if only I was born into those circumstances and I could have been such a person, that's irrelevant. Because if this man, all he needs to do is to focus on fulfilling the circle of his life task to find meaning. And it's the same with this person. This person his job might be to raise a successful farm, to have children, so that he can pass on that farm to his children in the future. That's no better or worse of a purpose than fulfilling the role of a king in an empire. They're just two different levels that we're looking at, and based on the meaning of the tasks that we've got based on the radius that we were born with. I know it's a bit of a jumble of a sentence, that one. But all that's important is, does this person fulfill that area? Because if this person falls short, and let's say he doesn't particularly take care of his crops, and he runs into ruin, and his family are destitute, and he's got nothing to pass on to his children, then we could say there that he's not been able to live a meaningful life. He's fallen short of his potential. He's fallen short of his purpose. It doesn't make a difference if it's got nothing to do with like a global level like this person could have. If this person also falls short, then he's also not actualized his potentials either. What this person needs to do is to focus on what he has got and what attitude he has got towards life. And it's exactly the same for this person here. It shouldn't make a difference whatsoever about what somebody else is doing or isn't doing. Now, a lot of this example comes from a long-winded version of what I've made there, from The Doctor and the Soul by Viktor Frankl. You might be aware of him for Man's Search for Meaning, but I would recommend you read this book because it's absolutely fantastic. It's full of absolute gold on all the pages. And that is very much a literal interpretation of one of the examples that he comes up with around fulfilling the circle of your life's task. And there's this beautiful phrase on page 57, very, very short, just to help illustrate this point. So, life requires of man spiritual elasticity so that he may temper his efforts to the chances that are offered. And that's what's important with all this. It's looking at the chances that are offered to you and you alone. It's irrelevant what chances are offered to other people, because all that's going to happen there is we're going to be focusing very much outwardly rather than inwardly. We're going to be looking at how other people have successfully or unsuccessfully fulfilled or unfulfilled their life's task, rather than being aware of the fact that I need to fulfill mine. So with all of this, when we talk about these ideas of values, we've got the superficial values that we can pursue. We can call those, exactly as Frankl calls them in his book, creative values. So this might be, I want to be more creative in my life. I want to be more adventurous in my life. They're important, and we can actually embody them, but they're quite superficial. Below that, we've got this idea of experiential values. That is, if let's say I climb a mountain and I look out at the view and it's unbelievable and I've gained so much inner meaning from seeing such an amazing view, then we could call that an experiential value. Because if I was to write that down in a book and just read it, it wouldn't quite get the full impact as actually being able to climb that mountain and be able to see it. But more fundamental than both of those levels is the attitudinal value. It's the attitude that we have towards life. It's, can we say yes in spite of everything? Despite the difficulty that we may go through, can we still voluntarily confront life and say, yes, I'm still going to do it despite the difficulty? In this case, if let's say we go back to the examples of these two men, it doesn't make a difference what this man's life and what this man's life is like. This man just needs to be concerned with his life, this man with his life. In both cases, they have to answer the same question. Will I still say yes to life in spite of everything? Doesn't matter what resources he was born with or that he was born with. Doesn't matter the global impact he might have or the global impact he might have. In both cases, it's, will these people individually confront meaning in their life, go through the necessary suffering in their life as well, but overall, will they say yes to life in spite of everything? And that's a question that only this man can answer, and that this man can answer in his own life. So it's only a question that I can answer in my own life, and for the person listening to this at this point in time, nobody else can answer that apart from you either. So we need to make sure we are asking the right questions, and from those questions, approaching life in the correct way, which is voluntarily. It's saying, yes, I will do this despite this being difficult, because I know overall, if I don't, then I'm going to fall short of that circle. I'm not going to fully embrace what it is to be me fully. I'm not going to complete that circle if I don't say yes to life in spite of everything. I'm going to fall short, potentially here. I'd be later in life, I'd be here. I'd be towards the end of our life over here. There's different life tasks at different parts of our life, and we've got to be willing to confront them at different stages. We can get support and guidance on that way, but ultimately it's up to us to actually pursue that meaning and to pursue that difficulty and that suffering. But that is how we're going to find fulfillment. So what I want you to do is to take away from all of this is this idea of attitudinal values. Think about your life not in terms of the radius of the stick, but instead about the area that can be covered by that radius. Don't judge a man by the radius or the potentials or by that stick itself, but rather the journey that stick has gone on and the attitude that that area is going to be covered in the long run. It's going to be far, far more important. Attitude, attitude.